قدره ومقداره العظيم. A very good evening to everyone present. Maybe it's the afternoon, maybe it's the evening, maybe it's the morning, wherever you are in the world. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for taking the Peace Dialogue and Xenophobia Studies Center at the International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. And I have the honor of being the moderator for the session. We are going to have our first webinar, which is the Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, a peacemaker for our time, which I have with me here. And the author is with us, our sister Farah Michelle Kimball. But before we proceed with the text itself, we would like to invite our Phobia Study Center, IIUM, Associate Professor Dr. Daniel Muhammad Yusuf. The floor is yours. Tafadhal.
Okay. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin wa salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Ashrafil Mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikum assalam warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much for joining our first webinar. So we are the Peace Dialogue and Xenophobia Studies Center. Initially, we were set up at the tail end of last year as a center to combat Islamophobia and engage with issues surrounding it. But in the months that followed, the university management and thinkers felt that we needed to expand our purview. So we have now included peace and dialogue and also use a more generic term, which is xenophobia. So we will be focusing on Islamophobia in terms of research, engagement, and even policy advocacy. But at the same time, we'll be looking at other phenomena related to xenophobia, for example, xenophobia, and so on. Yeah. So this is an honor for me because this is our first, I think, webinar. It will also be our first foray into the social media platforms. By the end of this month, we will have our X, TikTok, Instagram, as well as Facebook handles. And this will make it easier for followers of our center to look into our series of activities and so on. So we will have inshallah, a healthy social media presence by the end of this month. And it will be easier for you to follow our events and so on. So this will be the first of our webinar, and it features our senior research fellow, Sister Farah, as well as Arif Subhan, our fellow at the center as well. We also have another fellow who is Sister Rauza Ismail. She's our big data expert, yeah, at the center. And she will be working on an Islamophobia as well as Muslim minority communities prosperity index in Southeast Asia. So we have a whole range of different research, engagement activities and whatnot. So this will be our first webinar. At the same time, this month alone, I think we will have 3. Afterwards, I think on the 14th of August, we will have a webinar with Dr. Nadia Lahdili of, I think, the African Free State University. And there will also be a third webinar involving a researcher at the Penang Institute, Brother Fawaz, who is an alumnus of IIUM as well. So I hope that this will be an interesting platform for those who are interested in engaging with peace, dialogue, and xenophobia, for us to create a healthy network, and also for us to perhaps use this as a platform to engage and facilitate new ideas and collaborations. So I think that is, at the end of the day, what we are trying to do with this webinar presence. So I'm quite happy to release you from my speech now, so that we can focus on a reading of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba. So without further ado, I will return this back to our moderator, Brother Arif. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Daniel Yusuf, for the remarks earlier on. So without further ado, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We will be discussing the book by our sister Farah Michelle Kimball, Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, A Peacemaker for Our Time, which was published in the year 2018 by an affiliate to the Islamic Book Trust, I believe. The other person, Irian Berhad. So the text was published in 2018. It is 376 pages of pure goodness, I believe. And for those who have not read the book, I would highly recommend it because we have an author here who could expound on the text itself. So based on my readings of the text, I think that it's a very pertinent text, especially to our current conversations on peace and dialogue, because peace and dialogue is a very important topic, given that we live in a world fraught with challenges, difficulties, trepidations, and so on. And I think Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba is a saint, a wali of Allah, who has given us a tremendous example of how to be during colonialism and how to deal with such pressures, especially in a place like Senegal. And of course, we have the blessed place of Tuba. And I believe that at the start of the book, the author, our sister Farah, gave us a bit of a taste of what it's like to be at Tuba by mentioning earlier on. Let me see, which page was it? Sorry. Tuba is a tree that is in paradise. The extent of its shade is equal to a 100-year walk, and the clothes of heaven's inhabitants will originate from its flowers, which is the hadith reported by Ibn Hibban. So I would like to ask Sister Farah, the author, we start with the challenge, the biggest challenge for you in writing the book?
Yeah. Okay. The biggest challenge in writing the book. Well, that's a very good question. I think it was, well, there were so many things going on in my life that it took me many years to write it because there were other things going on. But actually, I was very fortunate because before I started to write the book, I had collected a lot of information, some of which would probably be very difficult to even acquire now. Sheikh Abdullahi J, who was the one who introduced me to Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, was visiting us many times in California, and he brought books and booklets and things that are not really widely published. So I had a box, I had a box of these. And in fact, I didn't even intend to write a book, but I said, what can I do with all of this? He had passed away and it was important information. And I did think everybody needed to know about Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. So I felt like I had to put this all together. And so I think the challenge was maybe it took me I had to do it over a long period of time.
I see. And that process, of course, it's not easy. And the calling, I mean, it's very interesting because we know that you were born in the US, in the United States of America, and Senegal is not not a neighboring country.
Right, right.
So I was wondering before. Sorry?
I don't look too Senegalese.
Allah. I think sometimes they say don't judge a book by its cover, right? So this is very true. I think you are Senegalese at heart. You are someone who has embraced the teachings of the Shaykh, and I see it in of course the way in which you carry yourself, mashallah. I have a question with regards to the reason behind the writing of the book and the calling that you had. Was it difficult for you to kind of navigate that that want of writing the book with what you were doing at the time?
I was very fortunate because while I was in California, the context of me writing this book was I was a peace activist. Oh, walaikum assalam. I was a peace activist in California And actually, I had just come back from Iraq. We went on a aid mission to Iraq, and we actually broke the Iraq sanctions because there were so many children who had died. I mean, they said there were 1.5 million people who had died as a result of the sanctions. And I had just come back from there, and I was very much involved in peace activism. And I met Sheikh Abdullah J, who is very involved in global peace, the global peace movement, had spoken at the United Nations and the International Conference of Religions. And his son is supposed to be here today. I don't know if he's online. I can't see all the people. Bamba J. But anyway, Sheikh J passed away in 2001, and I began writing the book soon after that. But he was very much dedicated to peace, was very concerned about peace, had even a plan that he wanted to share for a spiritual way to deal with what was happening in Palestine. Even then, the issue of Palestine was very, very big. And so he came to visit us so many times, and he always had the teachings of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba with him. He was constantly reciting them along with the Quran. And in some ways, he was really a representative, I believe, of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. And obviously, he was as much dedicated to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. So I had this, I mean, treasure really in my home often. And so I think I imbibed a lot. So by the time I got to writing the book, I can't say it was difficult because I mean, it was, but I had received so much. And so I was grateful to be able to kind of transform that and put it on paper.
MashaAllah.
Explanation.
When I first got to know about the Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, I was doing a lot of reading, and of course, I had a Muqaddam in Singapore of the Tijani order, and I got to know more about the different paths in West Africa, and it caught my attention because the understanding of tasawwuf, of tazkiyat al-nafs in places like West Africa perhaps is a bit different from Southeast Asia or the West. But
Yes.
when I say different, not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It's just something which is inherent within Islam itself, the diversity within Islam, the understanding that Islam is not just for the Arab, it is also
Right.
for the Ajam. And
Right.
I mean, look at us. You are someone of Caucasian descent. I'm half Punjabi, half Malay, and it's a beautiful thing that we also have our guests from West Africa here. So we can
Yes.
see that it's a very global thing. It's a global trend, I would say, for the lack of
Yes.
a better word. And
Yes.
the Shaykh himself, he has a lot of murids who are of different ethnicities and backgrounds. And this is a
Yes.
testament to the beauty of Islam, the beauty of the Turuk itself.
Yes.
And there was also a write-up from Professor Osman Bakar who mentioned that the message of peace and non-violence that Sheikh Bamba passionately preached and practiced during his lifetime is the very opposite of the message of hatred, of enmity, of revenge, war, and destruction that is now causing or gaining ascendancy in our contemporary societies. So this message is, like I mentioned earlier, very pertinent. And I would like to ask you, Sister Farah, do you think that this message can be brought forward some places like Southeast Asia as well, in the context of our center, medics?
Yes. Yes. I know that Malaysia has certain ways of perceiving Islam, and sometimes the spiritual element is not as strong as in other places. But I do definitely think that gradually that that can be absorbed here too.
Mm.
And it's very
And
different. In Senegal, 95% of the people belong to spiritual orders, and everybody, they're different ones, the Qadariya, the Tijaniya, the Layan, and the Muridiya. And so it's it's more natural. And I was fortunate to learn about Islam in Iran, where there's also a very, very heavy spiritual element there over centuries. So yeah, I believe that, gradually it can be absorbed here.
Excellent. One other thing that I was meaning to ask, perhaps you've mentioned this in an earlier conference at ISTAC, is the fact that the picture of the Sheikh, there's that only that one picture of him, right? The one
Well, there's now
which is,
another one, but yeah, for the most part, it only been that one. But now they've found a few more, but they're not that much different.
and this is a testament to the asceticism of the Sheikh, right? The zahidness, the zahid aspect, zuhud, which I think that is again very inspirational. What would you say to some detractors? I know when we talk about Sufism, and we talk about Tazkiyat al-Nafs, there is always this notion that perhaps it is antithetical to Islam, given that perhaps there are external influences, maybe even Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism. And on the broader kind of picture, do you think that these comments are justified, or do you think that they come from a place of ignorance?
Yeah, I think that most people don't really know as much about the spirituality, and I think that if they just understood, particularly Muslims, if they just understand the three components of Islam, Islam, Iman, Ihsan, and know that Ihsan is the purification of the soul. That is the part that we're, emphasize that the spiritual orders emphasize so much. Assalamu Sheikh Fahmi, I'm so glad to see you all. Anyway, so I think it's just proper instruction about this being a major portion of Islam. And it's a shame to not have it, because it is really the heart of Islam. So I kind of feel bad for the people who don't have that in their life to round out their Islam.
It's very true, because we tend to, having studied in the West, I think that there was this kind of a chasm, right? Understanding between, because there was all this talk about madhahib, about what you subscribe to in terms of the fiqh, but there was this convolution between fiqh and also Akida. So for example, they would ask you, what do you subscribe to in terms of your fiqh? But then they would lump Imam Ashari, for example, with conversations with Imam Shafi and Imam Malik, which is actually, this is not the correct approach, I believe. And I think this has a lot to do with the way in which Islam is being taught in universities, in schools, but especially in universities, because, especially in the West, because there is also that element of Orientalism, which we cannot deny. And on this point, I would like to ask you on the influence of the French on the Sheikh in terms of his resistance that is non-violent. How did the Sheikh deal with the foreign powers, the French at the time?
Well, he himself didn't want to follow in the ways of the French so much. I mean, his books were written in Arabic, and I believe he didn't use the French language so much. But in a way, through the trials and tribulations, which he would not have experienced if it hadn't been for the French, he wouldn't have, even been well, he wouldn't have been able to, really gain that spiritual fortitude that he did gain through what he had to go through. 30 years of being imprisoned in exile or under house arrest. And there's no hero or great person or prophet who didn't gain their greatness through trials and tribulations. So the French certainly contributed that, as they, gave him a very, very difficult time.
which meant that the French gave him something that they did not even expect, right? In terms of
Exactly. Yeah,
so
and
when
by sending him to Gabon for 7 years, thousands of miles away from Senegal, where people thought he might be dead. He was deeply challenged, but by coming back, that just the fact that he had survived those 7 years was like miraculous, and he was considered, great partly for that. But he also wrote many, many, many books while he was in exile in a very, very difficult situation in the Congo in Africa.
was it also Mali as well? He was exiled.
Mauritania. He
Sorry,
was
Mauritania.
exiled. He was exiled to Mauritania, and that was a much more friendly exile for him. He was with other sheikhs and educators, and Mauritania is known to have excellent Islamic scholars and libraries. And he went there first before the exile to gain knowledge in Mauritania, and then later on he was exiled there. Yeah. I want to say that, eventually I think other people can participate, but there are definitely people here who have a lot of knowledge and information about Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. I believe Sheikh Lamine Mbake is here, and he's actually a great grandson of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, and he's the director of a financial institute in Senegal. But he has a lot. Are you online, Sheikh Lamine? Serene Lamine? Anyway, I saw his name there, but there are other people here. And I just
Assalamu
want to say,
alaikum, Sister
oh,
Farah.
walaikum okay, walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much.
So I
Mashallah.
just want to say that there are other people who, when I don't know how we have this set up, but they can also, provide some good comments.
Yes, inshallah, we will have the, I wouldn't call it question and answer. I would call it a discussion session, maybe in about 20 minutes to half an
Sure.
hour, or maybe even
Sure.
less. But because now I have the privilege of asking you some questions, I would do so.
Okay.
And my next question is with regards, because Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, he was exiled, right? So we would call him a persona non grata. But I believe that his power, his influence actually grew in absentia, which is similar to, great scholars or great fighters, great reformers like the Kurdish Mujaddid Said Nursi in Turkey. So you see these prominent individuals, when they're exiled, their influence actually grows. So how can that be? How is it that when they were exiled, the influence grows?
Well, I think for the beginning part of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba's exile, I'm not so sure how much his influence grew because people didn't really even know whether he was alive or not the first few years. Then people were able to go and make contact with him, and he was writing books. I think the biggest push that made people know more about him was when he returned, especially from Gabon. But even before he went to Gabon, the reason they sent him was because he was so popular, and people were coming around to him to learn about Islam, and he was already teaching as a teenager. His father used his book in classes, and he was already writing verse, and he versified texts of the great Islamic scholars that we're all, quite familiar with. And he made they're chanted and they're sung, so people really internalized the essence of Islamic teachings through his versifications and singing. It's very beautiful. It's even though the lyrics are in the words are in Arabic, but the music is completely distinctive to Senegal and Africa. So all this was happening before, and he was sent away because he was gaining so many followers, and the French were very scared that he was building up a jihad, they said, against them. Of course, it wasn't true, but so they wanted to get rid of him. As when he went to Gabon, he was the last of the resistance fighters after Lat Dior. And there were many resistance fighters of the French, of which he was not a physical fighter. But when Lat Dior passed away, Ahmadou Bamba was the only one left, and they wanted to get rid of him as to get so they wouldn't have any more.
Mm, I see. I see. You know, I think I mean, of course, the Shaykh did call for jihad, but I think the jihad that we are talking about is the jihad kabir instead of the jihad saghir, right? The greater
Absolutely.
jihad.
Yes,
Yes.
when they told him you want to start a jihad, he said, yes, you're right, but it's the jihad of the soul, and I want to see the face of God. And he said, you all have your weapons, but my weapons are ilm and taqwa, knowledge and God consciousness. So yes, he definitely fought a jihad, but it was a jihad of the soul. And he was very committed not to have to fight with weapons or to have any kind of physical fighting or warfare. And that
Okay.
was a very strong.
And in the context, perhaps to bring it to more contemporary examples, would you say that this is something that we could see with the Palestinian cause as well? You know, it's a bit of perhaps a controversial question, or but do you think that this resistance actually comes from within for the Palestinian?
Yes, I definitely think the Palestinian situation ties into the life of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, because he upheld the truth, and the truth is what is being eclipsed in a lot that's going on with the Palestinians. And I know that Sheikh Abdullah J, before he passed, he was so concerned about the Palestinians, and that was way back then. And he had he sort of had a blueprint for what he wanted to do to help the Palestinians, and he wanted people of the different religious traditions, Catholic, Jewish, and Muslim, because they're in that area, that there would be enough of them to get together to pray until there was a change. But at this point, there's been so much passive, resistance and nonviolent resistance that I also, recognize the importance of the other side of the spectrum, the yin and yang, the violence, nonviolence. And at this point, I actually believe that there needs to be a protective force of Palestine, and to save the Palestinians. Very urgent.
Yes, I completely agree with you, because there is a very urgent need. Sometimes there is a need to take up arms, I believe. We've got resistance fighters like Umar Mukhtar, who fought for the liberation of Libya against the Italians. We've got people like, in the Nusantara region in Indonesia, many of the Walis, they also fought against the Dutch. So there is this, as you mentioned, yin and yang, which we need to consider. Now moving on, a bit on the part of the resistance we've mentioned before. I was just also reminded of have you heard of the Nasiri dua, the dua Nasiri?
No.
So there's this specific supplication that was recited in Morocco, I believe, when the French, of course, the colonialism happened in the Maghreb. So this particular supplication was recited called the Dua Nasiri. And what happened was, even though the French were not believers at the time, they realized the force, the power that came with this dua, this supplication, because it was a call, utter helplessness towards Allah, asking for help. And the French were so scared that they banned the recitation of this dua in the mosques. So this is the great irony, isn't it? That the non-believers are fearful of something that they don't believe in, because they saw and they felt the effects of it.
Yeah.
And I think this is also, it's related to Ahmadou Bamba, because there are also stories of his great karama. Perhaps you could share some of if it's okay. Is it
Yeah.
okay to share? Yeah,
Yeah.
the one with
I
the
think.
lion.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, there's a story, and some of these stories are not. Oh, people might be angry at me to say this, but they're not backed up by historical knowledge. So, but regarding the lion, apparently, he sat with the lion that would not touch him and was just at peace with Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. But the biggest one is when Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba was on the ship to go to Gabon. They were treating him badly for a while there until they started to realize that he was really saintly. But anyway, he needed to do his prayers, and he wouldn't not do the prayers. So, and the French apparently would not allow him to do the prayers on the boat. So the story has it that he got off the boat and he put his prayer rug on the ocean and he did his prayers on the ocean, and then he came back. And that the image of that is widely used all over Senegal. There's paintings on glass of that. It's probably one of the most popular images to be found of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba praying on the water. Yeah.
I've seen an American artist, a contemporary American artist, actually painted the Sheikh on the prayer mat. It's amazing to see. Yeah, this the question of karama, the question of things that are not tangible, they're not empirical. I think this ties into the fact that there is the sunnah of Allah as well, and the suspension of reality, as it were. It's important for us as Muslims to also believe in the unseen, and I think this is something that has to be really taken into consideration, given the fact that we're so bogged down by scientism, right? This notion that everything has to be quantifiable, has to be verified, has to be tangible, has to be observed with the naked eye. And this has taken away some of the qualities of the Muslims, in the sense that there is firm belief in miracles, in karama. And I think, of course, a more tangible karama is the fact that the work of the Shaykh is seen in the disciples, in the murids,
Yes.
even to this day, right? That is a great karama.
Yes.
There's also a saying that one istiqamah is better than than 1,000 karamas, I think. So, istiqamah being perseverance, being commitment to a specific cause. And this is true because, there's so many distractions in the world today that it's very difficult for us to remain steadfast.
Yes.
And I think, this is an advice to myself as well, first
Go
and
right in the
foremost.
fridge.
So,
Yes.
yes. Yes.
And I
What
think
do you
his writings were miraculous in a way. They're very beautiful and beautifully sung on a daily basis all the time in Senegal.
maybe we can have a bit of if that's okay, we call it a recitation or a little
If
taste of the
I
side.
don't know if there's anybody here who can do that, or with a recording, possibly.
Yeah, from the diwan, maybe later on.
Yeah.
So this ties into my next question, which is the role of memory in learning, in knowledge accumulation, the role of qasaids, of poetry, of the arts in transmitting knowledge. How important was this for the Shaykh and his disciples? The power of the qasaid, the qasida.
Boy, I mean, to me, it seems like they're really at the center. I mean, other than the Quran, of course, they're really at the center of his teachings. His writings were so beautiful and convey such knowledge, divine knowledge, and and contain instructions for daily life, as well as mystical knowledge. So they're really at the center of his works and life. And if you go to Senegal, you'll see. I mean, the qasidas are everywhere, and they're sung. I think when I was in Tuba, they were going on 24 hours a day over the loudspeakers. So I don't know how it is now, or if that was just because I was there during the Magal.
How long were you there for? Sorry, how many years?
I was only in Senegal for a month,
Oh,
but
I see.
I spent there was a couple of years with that Sheikh Abdullah J was visiting us. Yeah.
See, that's the power of the place is that even if you spend 1 month, it's as if you've been there for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
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 I think this is also similar in places like Medina Bay, with the Tijani order, places with Barakah.
Yes.
There's something about it, right?
Yes. Yes.
And this is coming from someone who's living in Kuala Lumpur. It's very
Exactly. I
commercial.
came from California.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
And
Um,
Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba said that people will be coming from the lands and the seas, and I believe that's the case.
hmm. My other question is with regards to the different paths, right? Because you have the different tariqas. Was there any kind of relationship or link with the different leaders of the different paths when the Sheikh was active?
Yes. And currently there's the Qadariya, the Tijani is larger than the Muridiya is the one that Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba founded. Tijani is larger in numbers of people than the Muridiya, but the Muridiya tend to be more well known. But and then the Qadriya and the Layan, and they all from everything I have seen, they're all very harmonious. There's no there's no tension between them or anything. They all accept each other. They go to each other's events. From what I have seen, anyone can correct me, but right now there's the president of Senegal is Tijaniya. Before that it was Muridiya, and they go to Touba to pay their respects to the Grand Caliph at Touba. So I mean that's a beautiful thing about Senegal. There's no competition between them or that I certainly don't know of anything like that. That's complete harmony and acceptance of all of them.
It's a beautiful thing indeed. Even I think the Emir of Kano in Nigeria, I think he was of the Tijani order. I had the opportunity of meeting him in London. A very amazing man. Always dressed impeccably because of the local dress,
Oh,
and he had that everywhere he went, even in London, and it was amazing.
oh,
Yeah,
alhamdulillah.
alhamdulillah. Okay, I also have now a question with regards to the current situation in Senegal and in the situation in the sense that perhaps people they assume when we talk about Sufism or Sufis in general that there is this aversion towards political life, that there's this kind of seclusion or quietism, because the person who is involved in the tariqa has to remove himself or herself from siyasa, from politics. How far is this true?
Okay,
Or if
well,
it's not true?
yeah, I can answer that, and also, Serene Lamine Mbaki can, I'm sure, say something too, for sure. But there's a very interesting relationship between the government and the Sufi orders, and as I mentioned before, the heads of the government go and pay their respects to the Grand Caliph in Touba. And the thing is, in Senegal, everybody is a member of a spiritual order. So even the members of parliament, this is very unusual in the world, actually, to have this level of spirituality. And there's a relationship between them. Now, some people maybe wouldn't want to be involved in politics. because, you know, they consider that there's a chance that they could get corrupted or whatever. But there is a very, I believe, a positive relationship between the spiritual orders and the government. And the caliph doesn't directly get involved in politics, but the murids, or the followers of whatever sheikh, they really listen to their sheikh. They're not going, their master is the sheikh. It's not the political leader, you know. So there's a delicate balance between the two, but definitely the spirituality, you know, trumps what the political aspect. But we definitely have some people on here online who could say more about that.
Would you be okay if we opened it up in, say, 5 to 10 more minutes?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, but I also wanted to mention, apologies, didn't mention this earlier. Due to unforeseen circumstances, our other
Yes.
discussant couldn't be here, Dr. Sunter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he couldn't be here tonight, but hopefully we can engage with him in a later webinar.
Yes.
Yeah, because also I wanted to delve into the question of ahimsa and then the Gandhian term, which was actually taken from the Jain tradition. It's not actually Hindu. Ahimsa being non-violence, right? So would you say that it is an issue if someone conflates the two, perhaps Gandhi and Bamba, or Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba? Um, so you know, there's this whole notion of sometimes ecumenism, right? You're trying to relate different concepts, different traditions, or sort of perennialism. Would you say that such moves could cause a bit of a misunderstanding, or is it something which is rooted in human nature?
You mean you're kind of like sort of comparing ahimsa with like Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba's nonviolence, or is that
Yes.
what you mean?
So someone might actually, you know, try to connect the two, or to see if there are similarities or parallels between the two. Maybe you could expand on that.
I think there are some parallels, but Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba's nonviolence and notion of nonviolence came even directly from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And he even had a mandate from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, to not take up weapons. And there's a I mean, there's a famous famous statement by Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. He said that, I mean, he was so committed to nonviolence, even though he was tempted several times to take up arms. And he said that, and this, you know, he got this mandate from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and it was a divine edict. And he said, I have agreed to certain conditions with God, such that even if the Mahdi, that is the end-time Redeemer, descends to earth, I would not assist him in battle. I will not kill neither scorpion nor serpent, nor anything that is living. According to the direction I have taken, it's absolutely forbidden for me to shoot from a weapon, such that even if the Mahdi were to arrive, and if I were to take up arms, my mission would be lost. This is his commitment to nonviolence. So, I mean, it's purely prophetic, and I don't think, you know, you could really compare it to, I mean, on some superficial level, you could compare it to something else. But
Yeah.
Professor Osman Bakr had said something, you know, about this, that the nonviolence in his situation, that was the only way for him, and he knew that, and he wasn't going to go outside of that. But it was definitely from, it was definitely prophetic and like a divine thing. It didn't come from himself even. It wasn't that he came to that conclusion.
I think many people in the modern world tend to overlook the power of dreams, of inspiration, right? Of direct, of even yaqaza, viewing the Prophet ﷺ in a waking state. Because we have been so stunted, unfortunately, by modern technology, that it doesn't allow for us to have this imagination of something beyond. So when I say imagination, of course, it doesn't mean it just comes out of nowhere. It's sorry, inspiration would be the better word, right? Ilham. And I think this is the reason why there's a lot of issues today, is that we are not in touch with ourselves, and the ability for us to tap into our dreams and to understand about ourselves even more, perhaps of a time before this and a time to come, right? And this is why sometimes when I hear people say that Islam is backward, Islam is a backward religion, I kind of chuckle, because how can it be backward if it's talking about a time that is not yet now? It's not here, the afterlife, right? The barzakh, the ismus. So this is why I think it's important for us to have the right vocabulary as well when we engage with people who are perhaps a bit ignorant. And of course, it's no fault of their own if they are willing to learn. And we have the responsibility and the obligation as Khalifa. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, right? Baqarah verse 30, which is an often cited verse. And it's very important because, of course, the role of the center itself predicts we have this obligation, and the larger ummah, we have an obligation as Muslims to convey this message. I think this is why your book is very important and is very relevant to our discussion about peace, dialogue, and xenophobia. But yes, that's it from me. I think it's good time for us to open up the discussion to our guests as well. What do you think?
Yes, that's good. Yeah, I want to say one thing, that Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, when he knew that he was not to use nonviolence, he also knew that what the outcome was going to be positive. He was going to be successful. He was going to be successful into the future. It's just like Moses, peace and blessing be upon him. There was no way he could logically think that with the Pharaoh's armies behind him and walking towards the ocean, that everything was going to be fine. And his companions said, we're done for. We're going to be overtaken. And Musa said, absolutely not. He knew. And so I think Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba also knew that he could, maybe in some instances you don't want to be nonviolent, but he knew, because he got this direction, that it was going to be a success, and
Yes.
and he would influence people.
Um,
And perhaps
this
he
is
was
Sorry?
perhaps he was a mujaddid. I mean, people believe that he was a mujaddid, one of the people who comes every 100 years to renew the
I
religion.
believe so. I believe so. I believe he's a mujaddid. Every 100 years, you've got Imam al-Ghazali, one of the mujaddids as well. Of course, Sayyid Nursi. So I do believe that Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba is a mujaddid. And of course, when you mention Musa alayhi salam, this level of certainty, right? MashaAllah, it's I think ilmu yaqeen, ainul yaqeen, haqqul yaqeen.
Yeah, it's faith. It's a matter of faith. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, I've really enjoyed this discussion, but I feel
did
that I'm very privileged to have the opportunity to speak with you. But I'd like to now open it up to our guests from wherever you are in the world. Bismillah. Please also state your affiliation if possible. We can start off with Brother Muhammad from Malaysia. He says, I would like to ask a question.
Okay.
If you like, you can also turn your video on if you like. If not, it's also fine. But please, Bismillah. Brother Muhammad. Is he there? Let me see. Yes, please. Let me just type it in the box. Maybe he's okay. Okay, yes. If you'd like to ask a question, you can use the icon to raise your hand. Yeah.
I hear somebody mentioning Fusti. Is it that I wonder if that's they have the recording. Anyway.
I think we will have the recording. But Brother Muhammad, maybe you can type your question if you don't want to ask it verbally. We can move to Brother Abdullahi, who has his hand raised.
Oh, Lamin.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. I'm sorry, I don't know where to raise your hand in the Zoom. So
Okay. Bismillah.
Assalamu
Bismillah.
alaikum. I'm Abdullah. Salamin, you can proceed before I take the floor. Assalamu alaikum, Baki.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Salamin.
Alaikum salam.
Khalil Malazi.
Mashallah, Khalil. Mashallah. Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على الهادي الأمين سيدنا ومولانا محمد المكين وعلى آله وصحبه ذوي الرضا والتمكين. Thank you, Brother Yusuf, and thanks for Sister Farah, and I'm very happy and delighted to be honored to participate in this Zoom meeting. And, I send my regards and thanks to all of you, to IUM, and all the people that provide this organization. I was very happy to hear Sister Farah answering the questions. So I just wanted to add a few comments regarding Brother Yusuf's questions. Bottom line here, I think, is the book of Sister Farah is very important into portraying who is Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, because Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba has a brotherhood, but actually it's wider than a brotherhood, because he said his mission as a Mujaddid was to revive Islam at its authenticity. And the Shaykh wrote somewhere that the Sahabas are the spiritual fathers of the Murids. So to understand the Shaykh and to understand Muridia, you have to have a deep understanding of Islam. So basically what the Shaykh was trying to do is to form an elite of Muslims, and these will be elites by trying to mirror the Sahabas who have the highest stakes, which means in spirituality, in Iman, Islam, and Ihsan, in practicing the Sunnah, the highest level, because he calls his Muridiya Sunnah, not only a brotherhood, but at the same time, if you take a Sahaba like Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Ali, they were at the top level in spirituality, they were at the top level in behavior, and they were at the top level also in leadership, in economy, in politics. So the Sheikh was trying to build, not the perfect Muslim, but Islam is viewed as the perfect solution in here and then hereafter. So this is basically the bottom line. The other thing I wanted to mention also is, if you look at the writings on the Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, like Sister Farah is writing on the Shaykh on spirituality, on peacemaking, and a lot of advantages. If you go, for example, to economy in Mauritius, which is might be funny to certain people, because this is a Sufi order, and usually we're told that the Sufi order is disconnected from, like you said it before, politics or economy. you have, since Donald Okuzo Bryan, a lot of people from Oxford University, for the past 100 years, they wrote a lot about economics in the Murid system because they see that they're very successful. If you go to architecture, if you visit the way the Sheikh was making his concessions, everybody can go around in the concession, but women don't mingle with men, elderly people, not with young people. But everything is designed on Islam. So basically, each way you look at the Sheikh, you're very impressed. And if you look at the people that went through Tarbiyah on the Murids, you're very impressed. But bottom line is, maybe he has a deeper understanding of Islam than anybody else. Now, coming back to the spirituality and the Khasaids, like Sister Farah explained, the Sheikh had an objective of being a very good Muslim in the beginning. But in his spiritual journey, he felt like he had a mission. And actually, if you go, one of the Hasidic called Asiru Ma'al Abrar Hina Asiru, when the colonials took him and wanted to deport him because they accused him of jihad, because remember that the French, they crushed the traditional leaders, they crushed all the people, the religious leaders, they wanted to stop Islam. But also there were some good leaders in Senegal that went for real jihad for Islam. But he came, and when they accused him, like Sister Farah said, of jihad, he said, yes, but ujahidu bil ulum wa bituqa. I do the jihad, but I do the jihad akbar. But how he was doing his jihad through non-violence and all, it was like doing the tarbiyah to his people, making those people very deeply rooted in the Islamic values. And also even people that couldn't, like study fiqh and all the ulumuddin until the end because they were older, he put them in an environment where they have the Islamic values. This is the reason why you go to US, you go to any place, you see some murids that don't have necessarily a good Islamic education because they didn't study fiqh and all that. They're not the elites, but they still have the behavior of a good Muslim. I think those are the ones I wanted to touch upon. The last part maybe is regarding maybe politics, which Sister Farah wanted to intervene. Now, when the Sheikh trained his first people and they were spotted by the colonialists, they had the Orientalist people meant, those are put by French people, and they were studying Islam in deep, and they were working to help the colonialists, finish Islam and those people actually started writing negative things about him, so to prevent people from following Islam. But basically, what is to be retained here, with the Sheikh having the success, with the Sheikh having the success on all that. I don't know if I'm still online. Yes. So basically, and I'm going to stop here, leave the floor to other people. With the Sheikh having a success, with the Sheikh having a success on through education of what he's trying to be perfect Muslims. Now those people were successful in the spirituality. Today, if you go to Tuba, every 10 or 12 years old is a Hafiz of Quran. By 15, 16, they studied all the fiqh and then all the basis of Islam and anybody in Senegal. But if you go also to economy, they're very successful. If you go to behavior, they're very peaceful. That's why they go to US and everywhere else, and they're granted permissions to spread Islam, within the teaching of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba. But also politically, this is logical. Politically, they have a power, because if you take, I don't know, millions of people in Senegal, they are following the Caliph's orders. They are following the Caliph's orders, and it's necessary for if the government say go on the right hand side and the Caliph say go on the left hand side, people will go on the left hand side. So basically, since the colonialist time, they have a political power. Now the question is, a lot of people say, why don't the Murids are not taking the power? Why don't ruling the country? But bottom line, it is Sheikh's teachings. Even having that power, we should not unfocus from the main goal of being a perfect Muslim, of doing the right hand side by changing people through the teaching of Islam. I'm sorry, I was not prepared, so I kind of.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think that's very insightful. It's an insider perspective, something that we need here, especially in Southeast Asia, to know more about the environment situation in Senegal. We had a question, or was it a comment from our brother Abdullah?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tafaddal.
Thank you so much, brother Amin. أعوذ بالله الكريم من شر الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد السراج المنير وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وجعل في الدارين بجاه توفيق يلازم التيسير. Assalamu alaikum everybody here. This is my pleasure, brother Amin, sister Campbell. This is my pleasure to have you here on board. I actually have read your book a number of times, and this is my pleasure here today to have you on board. And let me tell you, your work, your book, Peacemaker, Ahmadou Bamba, made a joyous daybreak as a long night of unrealistic unknowns of Ahmadou Bamba in terms of comprehension, in terms of mapping, because Ahmadou Bamba, and I will be my step here, is a peacemaker. He's a non-violent actioner, but his peacemaking manner, his non-violence methods are far away different from what we have known so far. And this is my stake. I would love to jump directly on that because when Ahmadou Bamba declared, I have forgiven all my enemies to please the one who has chased them from me. Hence didn't I seek to take vengeance. Hey, this affirmation grew to be a permanent figure in the life of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, Habizullah. Then his vision, indeed the approach of non-violence was different from Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi you mentioned. It was divinely inspired and rooted most deeply in his noble character. Because in fact, if Martin Luther King or Mahatma Gandhi preached non-violence when confronted with a repressive machine outmarching them, far from here, it was only a tactical nature for them to face the repression. And it was oriented towards a precise goal, meaning the conquest or the emancipation of the nation dominated by racial colonial power, respectively. They just tried to foster a certain attitude in the ranks of the enemy. But Ahmadou Bamba's approach of nonviolence was exactly the opposite, as I said, far from the aim of stimulating any reaction on the part of the enemies. And never did the material world he hold its interest. Very important. Now, the Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba approach was engraved in his global nature, convinced for submission to the divine decree and to seek God's consent in everything. Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba also said in a poem you all know, Midadi wa Aqlami, very famous poem, I have forgiven them only for the God's face, with a pure heart and for the satisfaction of the one, meaning Prophet Muhammad, whose footsteps are followed and whose arrival was greatly desired. Now, in this way, he resembled the model by excellence, Sayyidina Muhammad, who waged war only to defend himself and on order of his Lord, the Creator, the wise, the just. This, I said, is the chapter 8 of the book of your master, Shaykh Abdullah J, meaning Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba and non-violence, which I currently am working on to re-edit it. In a nutshell, thank you ever so much for having you on board. In a nutshell, we shall know that Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba is a peacemaker. Is far way different from what we have known so far. His non-violence attitude, his non-violence approach is far way different, is ever rooted divinely, not for the word. I was Abdullahi Nying, and I'm a translator, interpreter here in Senegal. And I used to teach cartoons here at CESAC, at Gaston Berger University as well. A profound believer of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba. Thank you ever so much, Brother Amun. Thank you, Sister Campbell. And it is nice to have you on board. Thank you, everybody here. Thank you also, our Sheikh Lamin Mbake, for this great intervention, which I really appreciate it. Thank you ever so much, guys. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, brother. It's very uplifting, mashallah. I can feel the passion here, even in Malaysia. Jazakallah khair. Sister Farah, would you like to comment on that, or are you okay as it is?
No, I'm okay with that. Maybe I'll just say quickly, because I'll try to make this quick, but I wanted to say something because though Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba is so elevated spiritually and all of that, I wanted to make it really clear that he himself said that the foundation for all of his, teachings and should be for all of us is fiqh, is Islamic law. And he based everything first on fiqh and then launching to the other realms and, levels. But so he's not just a far out there, Sufi spiritual guy. He is extremely committed to everything about fiqh and Islamic law, and that we had to have that basis before even going to tasawwuf.
Yes.
And correct me
It's very true.
if I'm Srin Lamin or anyone else, but that's what I understand.
I think it's also right, because there's this whole notion of overriding, overlooking the Sharia in going mistaken.
Yes,
You have to balance.
just for 30 seconds. Yes. I just wanted to stress what Sister Farah said. If you go to a book, maybe the masterpiece of Tasawwuf of the Shaykh called Masalik al-Jinan. Yeah. And what is interesting is about Masalik al-Jinan, since the Prophet, the Shaykh, shows all these schools of Tasawwuf, and it's a great book. But the position of the Shaykh is the position more in line with Sunnah. It's very surprising when you come to Murids. They're very deeply into Tasawwuf, but at the same time they're very deep into Sharia, because his teaching is before you can go to Tasawwuf, you have to go through Sharia. You have to master Sharia, and that's the path to go to Tasawwuf. But at the same time, like I was saying, Sheikh Ahmad Bamba was trying to build a Muslim that is trying to mirror the Sahabas, which is trying to be as perfect as himself. Besides the equilibrium between Sharia and Haqiqah, also you have the equilibrium between the both worlds, between the economic power, the social powers, political power, and the spiritual power at the same time. And also stressing that the purpose of the Muslim is not a worldly action only, not afterlife only, but Islam is a perfect religion to have Sa'adatu Darin, as they say, in both words. Thank you. Sorry about the intervention.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. We have a question from, let me see here. It says, okay, We have Brother Muhammad first, and then we have Brother Harun Gindo. But we go with Brother Muhammad. Brother Muhammad, are you there?
Yes.
Assalamualaikum, Sidi.
Salam warahmatullah.
Looking radiant, mashallah.
Yes, there was, sorry, earlier there was a technical. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. Is it okay I call Haja Farah?
Hajj, I have not been on Hajj.
Okay. I mean, you will go, inshallah. Anyway,
Inshallah.
I was very attracted when you mentioned that Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba said, my weapon is something and taqwa. Can I just reconfirm what you just said? Then I can ask my question.
Ilm, knowledge.
Well, that struck me very, very deep because in my own research in master in ISTAC at the moment, at least I came across two other shuyukh during the time of World War, in the 19th century, who speak in the same message. They emphasize on ilm, and also one of them were worried that people were going away from this tradition of knowledge. But I would be interested to know, briefly, if you can, from your research, what did Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba meant in terms of what ilm he was emphasizing or encouraging people to go to and acquire. I mean, that would be, because they say the people of knowledge, the shuyukh, they are in complete agreement with the peripheral differences in their states and stations. And you can see clearly now, they are in complete agreement from this emphasizes on that understanding for my side. Thank you. That's my question.
Okay.
Thank you, Sidi.
He had a very strong basis in all the Islamic sciences, Islamic law. He memorized the Quran, the Arabic language studies. So he had a firm basis in all Islamic sciences and knowledge before he, went on to do other things. And he, let me see if I get all the names of this here. Well, I can't find it right now, but anyway, so he learned all of the Islamic sciences early on, and that was that, along with Islamic law and all, was the basis of his teachings. And he, as I said, he versified the teachings of As-Sanusi, Al-Ghazali, Abdul Qadir Jilani, Al-Qushayri, Ibn Arabi, Hassan al-Basri, Al-Junaid, Mansur al-Halaj, Abu Hassan al-Shadili, Ibn Atala. So he had a firm basis in that knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Can I jump on that?
Yes, please.
All right, very nice. Brother Muhammad, thank you for this very nice question. It's very important, a very important question to deal with. I will go first with the bayit. We call it the verse bayit in Wolof, in Arabic. Inni ujahidu, he said, bil ulum wa bituqa, abdul khadiman wal muhaymin shahid. Before that, he affirmed that he was a mujahidun, inni ujahidu sadiqun. And then he explained how his jihad will be proceeded in Ujahidu bil ulum. And then the ulum are, there's knowledge. Since the Tawhid knowledge, which is the knowledge of unicity of God, which is the paramount, the first knowledge that prevails in Islamic studies. Until others, nahu, which is grammar, yes, mantiq, bayan, and so on and so forth. Then there's knowledge combined are his weapons. And then you would understand that his jihad is a jihad against ignorance. And then in you jihad be alone. But another jihad be tuqah. And then what is tuqah? You shall know. And this is what we all used to call, having first some faith in God, but having regard toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this jihad is the jihad against not having regardness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then his jihad, he said, bil ulum, against ignorance, or bil tuqa, against not having regardless toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was my pick. Thank you. Sheikh Muhammad, please, Sheikh Lamin, go ahead.
Yes, I'm very sorry to intervene because I know Mr. Gindo and everybody is waiting. But just for 30 seconds, I think Mr. Nying did a very good intervention. Bottom line here is the Sheikh's teaching is like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, like the Sahabas, how they were successful, how they won, and how they spread Islam. The best way to resist the colonialists, to resist everything that's going on in the world right now, is to be a true Muslim. If you manage to be with God, you're going to be stronger than those who have violence and anything else. I just give you an example. When I was a student in the States, my father was a sheikh in Moradia, was a khalif. He came in and everybody was running around New York, driving, getting money. And at the end, when he was leaving, he told people, all you guys are running for money and worldly things. But if you put that same effort to have God, you will not only have God, but you will have money and everything else. So that's what the Sheikh was trying to train people, that if they do with now because before you worship God, you have to know Him. So if you know the like Mr. Nyang said, and the Sister Farah, the fiqh and everything you need to about Islam, and also important knowledges, because we forget that everything, mathematics and everything, came through Islam. Islam civilized the world, the West. So if you know all that and you have the behavior and but it's all linked to tuqa. If you do it for worldly purpose, it doesn't work. But if you do it for God's sake, you become so strong. That's what I wanted to explain. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Brother Harun Gindo, who's been very patient. Please, brother. Tafaddal.
Yes, shukran. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank you very much for the presentation, Sister Michelle. Thank you very much. Brother Arif, thank you very much. Yes, my name is Harun Ali Gindo, PhD student of ISTAC, IUM. Last year we had a forum there about Sheikh Ahmadou, Bamba, Gandhi, etc. That was very, very, inspired. And this is the second one I think that we are having here. This is very, very important also, and it has brought us together with brothers outside Malaysia. Now, I'm writing thesis with the title PhD thesis, Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba's Philosophy of Peace Activism, the dissemination of his work through the print. This book, this title, this thesis has been inspired by the work of our sister, Michelle, yes. And the book that she has written has been the source, main source actually, a lot of information there. And since then, I've also found quite substantial materials. Some of these materials are actually in French. Unfortunately, I don't know French, but some also, in Arabic. In all, the first part of the title, the philosophy, I think there are enough material, alhamdulillah. But the second part, which has to do with his work, this is where the challenge is. because I'm in need of primary sources to be able to conduct content study. And so I think this is the best platform to request, from our brothers. I've seen a lot of contacts here. I've taken the contacts. Let's assure I'll be, inshallah, in touch with brothers, especially we have in our president his own grandson. How fantastic is that? Okay, I've taken the contact. Inshallah, I will establish contact with our brother Lamini for such purpose. Yes. Also, Sister Michelle, inshallah, I will call you probably tomorrow or Sunday on the same topic. Yes. Yeah. So that's all I have to say. Yes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Harun. Inshallah. Ameen. All right. It looks like we are nearing 9:30 p.m. here in Malaysia. Let's see if there's perhaps Sister Farah, maybe one more question that we could take or one more comment, and then we can proceed with the.
I think I saw somebody else's hand up. Shazani, was it?
Kazani Masri. Excellent.
Yes, yes.
Brother Shazani.
Yes, I want to ask two questions. One is regarding, first of all, thank you, Saudara Arif, and thank you, Madam Michelle. Two questions from me. Number one is regarding theory of peace. How do you think Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba redefines peace with respect to, because let's say when we look at Tolstoy, close to his time, right? The idea of peace is the absence of war. So what do you think Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba has contributed in that with respect to theory of peace? And number two, perhaps more Sufic in nature, the idea of the name, let's say As-Salam, one of the name, or Al-Qawi. How do Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba manifest this asma of God that materialize his conception and his ideals and activism with respect to the works of his time? Thank you.
Okay, I can answer some of this, and I think there's other people who can also speak to this. You first asked about what was it?
Yeah, theory of peace. Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think the way that Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba taught about peace and for the continuation of peace was through the inner transformation that each individual has to go through in order to, establish peace on the inwardly in order to have peace in the world outwardly. So I know that Sheikh Abdullahi J, when he was running for president, he was saying that, a lot of people, they want to develop resources in a country, etc., but he wanted to develop people. And I believe that Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba wanted to develop people. He wanted people who were willing to transform within. And, it says in the Quran that God will not allow an outer change until until people change what's in their hearts. And I think that was part of the work of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba through the qasidas and through people internalizing the mystical and the teachings of Islam, was to transform hearts in order to then transform the world outwardly. Now, I think Sheikh Lamin can also may want to add to that. And then what was your other question?
The names.
Oh yeah, the names. Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba uses the names a lot in many of his qasidas, and I'm sure there are brothers here who recite these often and could also add to this to tell you that he even did these acrostics where he would use the names of the letters and the names of God, and I think other people can tell you because they're probably chanting these names on a regular basis. Yeah, if anyone would like to add to that.
Yes, I can. Can I?
Okay.
Okay, I'll try to be short. I think, Sister Farah, you answered the question. The first is the history of non-violence is doing the jihad nafs, is transforming yourself, working in the person. Because when the Sheikh was persecuted, when they first spotted him when he was finding the city of Tuba, you see all the colonists report, they say a Sheikh is there gathering people, and the people are very dedicated to him, and they thought he was preparing for the jihad, like some others did. But then they found out he was doing jihad nafs, jihad bil ulum bi tuqa. That's basically the story of peace, is trying to forge the individual into deep-rooted Islamic values, so he is stronger than a violent person. And I think a perfect example of that is, I think maybe you read the media lately in Paris, where the Murids had the authorization to, Abdullah Fahmy, I think he's here, was speaking there, and they were doing, regular Muslim prayers in the center heart of Paris in daytime. Even some extreme right people say why this is happening. If you also know the situation in the US right now, you see the Murids did the Bamba Day and they're marching, saying La ilaha illallah in the street. Now, the response to that violence, the non-violence attitude is, the Sheikh tells you that if you follow the teaching of Islam and you internalize them, you become stronger than a violent person. And this explained, like in Paris, they had the authorization, in New York, they had the authorization, because if you look at the Murid in New York, in Paris, or in another country, you cannot change him. He may change you to become a Muslim, but at the same time, he doesn't harm you in economy, in your interest. He respects your values. He's not violent. So even if you don't like him in the beginning, you're going to end up liking him. And I remember saying somebody when I was a student and I went to US in vacation in 1989 or 1990, when we had this first Bamba Day. Some people were saying at the United Nations, this come from street sellers in the street. And those street sellers actually are not even the elites of the Murids, but they have the tarbiyah of the Murids. But their behavior, displayed something like even the extreme right people, or the people who don't like Muslims, will end up liking them and will end up even becoming Muslims. So this is the teaching of the non-violence. If you have the right tarbiyah and the right education and knowing yourself, you become stronger than a violent. The second one is on the Asma'ul Husna. I think maybe 80% of the Sheikh's writing are based on the names of God. If you take Mafatih al-Bishr, every Hasidah, this is at the highest level. But at the same time, some of the people who follow the Sheikh in his beginning were like high scholars in Islam. They could even have their own tariqas. But they found out that what the Sheikh put, something new. He was a mujaddid, so he was reviving the teaching of Islam. But the new thing about Muridiyya was not only you learn those teachings, but you're trained on those teachings to become a perfect individual. So the Asma al-Husna I use at the spiritual level, but it's not telling that you have this Asma and you're going to be perfect. But if you go through this training, gradually you find out. Sorry for being long.
No worries, no worries. Thank you so much for the points given. I really appreciate. I think we really appreciate your comments. And I think that would be the last comment. Dr. Daniel Yusuf wants to go to Senegal. Inshallah, we can all go together. The PEDIX group, inshallah. In Malay, we say lawatan sambil belajar. There are some questions in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. We can't go to it. But if we can screenshot these questions and maybe answer it some other time, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to say thank you. So we're just wrapping up, brother.
Okay, just to talk about peace, the question of our brother Masri, I would go very fast. One time happened, my Shaykh, his name is Alaji Mbake, he's a great grandson of Shaykh al-Khadim, Ahmadou Bamba. He one day narrated me that there was a day somebody came to the house of Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba and then asked Mba jam rek. Mba jam rek, it's Wolof, and it means do you have peace? This is an alternative for Assalamu alaikum. We all know here in Arabic. And then when he asked Mba jam is peace in Wolof. The Sheikh asked it again, do you know what is peace? And Brother Masri, this is the answer for your question. And then Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba teaches that peace, because he told that guy that day that peace is worshiping God. Peace is worshiping God. And then he taught wherever nobody worships God, even if peace prevailed at some point, peace won't last there. I would say that again. Peace for Shaykh al-Khadim, Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba, is worshipping God. Wherever nobody worships God, even if peace prevailed at some point, that peace won't last there. And exactly this is what we could emphasize for his second question, talking about the Asma al-Husna. Since we're talking about peace, let us choose the Asma al-Husna Salam. In his book called Ikfini, he said, Anta salamul lazi salamta kulliya min uyubun nafsi bitayin mink ya Allah. Then here is another vision of peace for Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba. I said that peace is worshiping God there, but here Shaykh Ahmadou Bamba teaches that peace is being freed from all this worldly, heavy that's it. All there's worldly and heavy bad habits that one may have to conduct. Then peace is worshiping God. Peace also is being freed from all that worldly and heavy bad habit that one may conduct. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, brother Abdullahi. All right, I think we do have to part ways now, unfortunately. Malheureusement. Merci à tous. Inshallah, we will see each other again, yeah? Thank you so much for being here. And we hope to collaborate and to network with everyone. If you haven't already, we don't have our social media yet. But once we do have that, you can follow us on our social media to keep updated on our webinars, on our events, inshallah. So thank you also to Associate Professor Dr. Daniel Yusuf for being here, to Dr. L as well. Thank you to Sister Farah. Sister Farah, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yes, and thank you, everybody. Inshallah, we will be in touch. And peace and blessings to everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ma salama wa fi amanillah.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi